Friday, November 14th. And jumping off of what we did earlier in the week or last week, I think it was, with the rookies, and then what we did with the wide receivers, we're going to continue that today, and we're going to look at everybody's favorite position in Superflex, and that is the quarterback position. So once again, we've got our tiers, and let's jump right into it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but let's sit down, let's have a quick discussion with it. So, in our S tier, these are the guys you want to own in Dynasty football. If you're trotting these guys out, you have not a fear. Each week, you know that these guys are going to produce, and they're guys that often aren't traded too often because they know, like, yeah, they're going to be that consistent. So they're a little bit up there in age, but I've got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. Of course, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are in a league of their own with their rushing upside. But then Mahomes, who's proven once again that he can be a high point scorer as a passer this season, and he's also got the athleticism to do just enough and picks up some points here and there on the ground. But with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's offense, it's just he's always a threat to put up high numbers. And then Josh Allen, always scoring rushing touchdowns, getting rushing yards on top of being a high volume passer, and Lamar Jackson, dual threat, elite passer. So those I think it's not really up for debate. Those are like the big three that you want to own right now. And for the most part, they stay pretty healthy too. They're pretty reliable. There's rarely a situation where if you're owning any of these three guys, you want them on your bench. So that's who I've got in the S tier. I think consistency and reliability are one of the most important aspects of fantasy football, and these three bring it each and every week. Then in the A tier, we've got a guy who's really climbing the ranks, Drake May, and then Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Herbert. Now, I think that if Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels hadn't dealt with injury, they could be up there in the S tier right now with the other three. But their injuries have kind of hurt their stock a little bit. And Burrow specifically, his inability to stay healthy, it seems, makes him a much less desirable own than the names in front of him. And Drake May, who's just been on a tear this season, leading the NFL in passing touchdowns at this moment, I believe, after Thursday Night Football. Jaden Daniels is kind of similar to Burrow. He was the quarterback to own at the end of the season last year. But injuries and just not living up to the hype at certain points this season have kind of dropped him a little bit in the rankings. Not far. He's still extremely valuable, still very young. But he's not as high as he could be. He could have been. We could be discussing Jaden Daniels as the number one Dynasty quarterback right now, but we aren't. And I currently have Drake May in front of him just due to the fact that Drake May has stayed healthy and balled out this year. Then we've got Jalen Hurts, who his value, I feel like, is tied to his production as a touchdown scorer. I'm not saying that he's not a great passer, but he scores a lot of touchdowns also as a dual threat, like some of the names earlier. But before they got Saquon, when he was getting like push touchdowns every week, he was a very, very valuable asset. And I'm not saying that he isn't, but I think that's just kind of what we're seeing with the dip. And of course, when they're giving the ball to a guy like Saquon, they're not going to be throwing it as much. So Jalen Hurts, I've got currently slotted in right around the 7 range, but he's still, I think, in a tier just below Josh Allen, Jackson, Mahomes. But I wouldn't want to put him in front. I wouldn't put him in front of Daniels, Burrow, and May. And then I've got Justin Herbert, who's also been playing incredible this year. And he's got all the weapons around him. This is a guy who I think we can see climb up the rankings very, very soon. But I think that this spot right here is pretty conservative and a pretty solid placement for him right now. But that rounds out my A tier. So we've got, those are kind of like those are my top 8 guys. I think it's pretty undisputed when you're talking about the top quarterbacks in Dynasty football. All of these guys are going to come up in the discussion. When you're talking about like promise, production, who you want on your roster right now, I think these are the guys. Like, you're starting all of these guys. Now, moving on to our next tier. These are some younger guys mixed in with Baker Mayfield. That's how I'm going to describe it. We've got Jackson Dart, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and JJ McCarthy. So we've got these 4 high promise young studs. And then I've got Baker Mayfield here because right now, currently, I'd rather have Jackson Dart, because Jackson Dart, when he was playing, he was looking incredible. They're going to get a new coach, hopefully an offensive coordinator, offensive-based coach. And I think that Jackson Dart has just a really, really bright future tied to those assets and those weapons he's got in New York. Theo Johnson, Cam Scadaboo, Malik Neighbors. The offensive line is increasing with Andrew Thomas there. And the defense is pretty good as well. So I have high hopes for Jackson Dart. And when he played great. He's got that swag. He's got that it factor that we talk about a lot with quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, who has been balling out in Tampa. Losing Liam Cohen, I think, hurts. But I think the Egbuka connection is going to last a while. He's kind of similar to Mahomes in the way that I think he's an elite passer, and that's going to keep him relevant for long enough. Right behind him, I've got Bo Nix, who's been very up and down. Also, an elite dual threat, I would say. He really adds a lot of points on top. He has that rushing upside. So I've got him right behind Mayfield, and these were the two that I was kind of torn between who did I want to place where, Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. I'm going to put Caleb in front of J.J. just because we've seen a larger sample size, and we know Caleb Williams can do it. I still think J.J. McCarthy has a higher upside, higher ceiling. But as of now, I think it's too early to put J.J. above those guys. I think you'd rather be starting Caleb Williams right now. So now, sliding over to the C tier, this one's loaded with guys, because once you get past like the high potential guys and reliable high upside guys like Baker Mayfield, you've got a lot of quarterbacks that are kind of right in the middle that if you have any of these guys as your super flex or as a backup or as a plug and play number one, you're pretty happy. So I've got Sam Darnold, CJ Stroud, Michael Penix Jr., Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, and Bryce Young, rounding out that tier. So, of course, you've got your established passers here, guys that you are happy to start each and every week, like Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, and Jordan Love. And then you've got some younger guys and some guys who have been seeming to turn it around, like Jared Goff and Bryce Young, who have kind of, or not Jared Goff, sorry, Daniel Jones and Bryce Young, who have kind of flipped the script from the way that things were trending with their career. And then two younger guys, CJ Stroud and Michael Penix Jr., who CJ Stroud, there was a time when he was the Dynasty #1 quarterback, and Michael Penix Jr., who is still young and is finding his own in that Atlanta offense, and he's got the weapons around him too. So CJ Stroud and Michael Penix Jr., two high upside guys, and then Bryce Young, who could definitely move his way up in the tier as Carolina kind of settles in, Dave Canales, and they really discover what their true identity is. Right now, it's kind of seeming like it's going to be ground and pound, as they've seen success with Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dowdle, and then, of course, they're going to have Jonathan Brooks coming back in the future. But with Teteroa McMillan there, they've got some other weapons. I definitely think that Bryce Young, as they transition to potentially a more passing offense, he could climb in the rankings. And this isn't a diss to not have these guys, any of these guys up in B tier. They're all very reliable starters. I just think that the others have higher upside. Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's still relatively young, but Goff, Prescott, Purdy, Love, I think you kind of know what you're getting with them. It's not a knock on them at all, but if you have these guys, you're happy to own them. But I think you're kind of know what you're getting with them. Still, they're going to pop off for some high seasons, but they're also getting up there in age. Sam Darnold kind of goes with that, but I think he's also a little bit more valuable as a passer, considering his recent performances in Seattle. So that's what we've got there for that tier. Now, in the next tier, is kind of some guys that they've had their chance, and maybe they need a change of scenery similar to Daniel Jones. And then another guy, Cam Ward, who hasn't really lived up to the hype, but he's also a rookie. But it would be hard to say that you would rather have him over any of the guys in front of him. So we've got Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and Cam Ward here. That Tennessee offense is still figuring things out. Head coach fired. So there's going to be a lot of change. I think next year, I think he's going to be one of those guys that sees a year 2 breakout. So I say we just hold the brakes on Ward. I think this is a safe spot for him. But Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence, we've also seen have been kind of disappointing. Kyler Murray, in his absence, we've seen what could be with Jacoby Brissett leading the charge and connecting with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride at a more successful rate than what we were seeing from Murray earlier in the season. And Trevor Lawrence, who just the potential is through the roof. The ceiling is so high. He has all the tools. He just has not been able to put it all together yet. And we're still kind of experimenting with the Liam Cohen situation. I think that Trevor Lawrence, the jury's not out on him, but it's not as promising as it once was. And that's why I have him down here in D tier, kind of with Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, he does have that upside as a rusher, which may influence your decisions, but he's just been too inconsistent, turns the ball over, fumbles it. And passer, there's a lot to be desired. So I think Murray would really benefit from a change of scenery. I think Lawrence is just going to have to kind of hold out there in Jacksonville, wait for things to really work themselves in. Of course, he suffered with Brian Thomas Jr. really not picking off where he left off last year, and then Travis Hunter kind of being inconsistent and then going on injured reserve. But they did just pick up Jacoby Myers, so maybe that can influence some of his play. But I also really like that run game, so I just think that right now these guys you're kind of iffy on. If you're owning them, they're not the easiest start. Cam Ward, I would not be starting right now, but still he has that potential that keeps him right here in this tier. So now sliding down into our second to last tier, F tier. These guys are guys that you're kind of dreading throwing them out there. Tua, of course, I think you could group him in with that D tier. But right now, I think he's honestly like a step below Lawrence, Murray, and Ward, just from a value and ownership standpoint. And injuries, like with him, injuries are a major, major concern as well. So that definitely influences why I have him here in the F tier. And that offense just hasn't really been going. I don't know how long. That big win over Buffalo might change things for Mike McDaniels and his coaching situation, but I don't know if he's going to be there next year. And I think that Tua having to potentially learn a new offense, all that stuff might help him, it might hurt him. So there's more uncertainty with Tua than there is with the three above him, and that's why I have him here. And also injuries and inconsistencies. Then we've got Geno, who's kind of similar to Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and Bryce Young, who has kind of turned it around, but also he's getting up there in age. He's in Las Vegas. He's not like a incredible passer of the football. So I think he, out of like the veteran quarterbacks like Goff, Prescott, Love, he's kind of the least desirable one, and that's what puts him down in this tier here for me. Then we got Justin Fields, who I think he's got the skill, but he just hasn't been able to put it together. Too inconsistent to trust. Beginning of the season was really promising, but I think he's going to be a backup. I don't think he's going to be a starter next year. Dylan Gabriel, kind of similar. It's just been rough. And of course, he's a rookie, later drafted rookie, but that offense really has a lot of weapons. It's not been terrible, but it's not been great. I would put him right around the same value as Mac Jones, who I think definitely could get a shot as a starting quarterback, potentially with the Jets next year if they don't go quarterback in the draft. So I think these guys, everybody in this tier is very, very situation dependent, kind of with the exception of Tua and Geno. Fields, Gabriel, Jones are going to be very, very situational dependent, but this is currently, I think that they're definitely rosters. Like you're holding a roster spot for these three, but I don't know if you want to be committing a starting spot to them. It's going to be very situationally dependent for these three. And if you can get a good price on them, if somebody needs a quarterback in a playoff push, go ahead and sell them. I think that right now is a great point. But Brock Purdy is returning. So why I have Mac Jones in this spot is because I think he showed enough in that Shanahan offense that he's capable of being a starter. I think just everything that was going down those last few years with Belichick in New England, he did look good at times. He also looked terrible at times. It just wasn't the best for him. So I think Mac Jones will get another chance, and maybe we could see kind of a Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones resurgence with him. So now, heading into our last and final tier, I call this, once again, my favorite, the Unk tier. These guys are so old. There's really no future outlook, but in the present, they're producing, but all at different levels. Matthew Stafford, of course, is also up there with Drake May leading the race in passing touchdowns and passing yards. So Matthew Stafford, out of these three old quarterbacks, is definitely the one to roster. Aaron Rodgers, I think this might be the last season for him. Joe Flacco, this also might be the last season for him. And I would say that Flacco, if this is the end, he went out on a good note. He can start. I think he's going to be playing a couple more weeks. Burrow might be back relatively soon. I don't know if he'll start any regular season games this year, but if they're in the playoff push, I think Burrow's going to be back, and that might be it for Flacco. But otherwise, it was fun while it lasted. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how much longer he's got left in him. And Stafford, I think we honestly might have 1 to 2, maybe a couple more seasons as their kind of contending window stays open. But they don't have too much value in a long-term point of view, considering that they are so old. So that's what I've got for my quarterback tier rankings. I know that some of this, as everything is in Dynasty, it could change day to day, week to week. But this is where I am currently. This is kind of my thoughts on the players, on the quarterbacks, as it is one of the most valuable positions in Dynasty football. So next week, we're going to be doing more rankings, including we're going to be previewing the 2026 draft class, and we're going to do a full tier list with all of the most valuable players in Dynasty, regardless of position, breaking them down into tiers. So you're not going to see all of the quarterbacks. So I wanted to make sure that we're going to break down these positions and get a look at them. Probably going to touch on running backs next week as well. So that'll be really fun, doing a full, like, who are the most valuable players in all of the game. But yeah, that's kind of what I got today. T-Wolves play again tonight after a 5-day, 4-day, whatever it was, break. So I'm excited for that. But I'm also excited for more football this week. So we will be back Monday. Have a great weekend.